Hello, everyone. My name is Alicia Jackson, licensed professional counselor, and welcome to my channel. Today we are reviewing Inside Out 2. OMG, so much great stuff for us to talk about. I can't wait. So let's jump right in. First, I want you to know that I am an IFS therapist, internal family systems therapist, and so we really take a look at the internal world. And so Inside Out is such a beautiful vehicle and a way for us to learn about what's happening for us internally. That being said, we're going to talk about 10 things that Inside Out 2 lets us know and helps us to learn a little bit about our internal world. You ready? Let's get started. Number one. Number one. We learned anxiety is actually here to help us. Yeah. As we saw this character make his debut in the movie, all the other emotions are shooketh. And we see there's so much beautiful intent that anxiety has towards Riley. Wants her to have her friends, to be successful, have these successful friendships, wants her to do well on the hockey team. All of like really wants this for her because Riley wants this. Riley wants this, needs friends in order to navigate the school environment, to not feel alone. We need connection. Anxiety is here, it's working hard, and it is here to protect and help. Anxiety is like an alert system. And so oftentimes we get the message that anxiety is lying to us. We need to push it away. We need to stay calm. We need to not listen to our anxiety. Maybe that's not the best approach. But building a relationship with our anxiety, which I plan to do a video about that very shortly, but building a relationship with our anxiety versus dismissing it or pushing it away, as that can cause even more stress for ourselves internally. Anxiety is here to help, to let us know about any dangers that are foreseen that we may not be thinking about, and also if there are past experiences that we have been through that were distressing, painful, traumatic. It's like, hello, remember this happened? Remember this happened? Or this could happen. We got to think about this too. And okay, what are some ways that we can prevent this from happening? What do you think? Here, right? And being able to be with our anxiety instead of having our anxiety take over our body, our system. That's what was happening in the movie. Riley's anxiety, when it was at the center, it was in full effect. It was in the driver's seat. It was driving her. And so when our anxiety is driving us, ooh, that's when we don't, right? We don't like that feeling because it becomes all consuming. But you saw in the movie when anxiety had its own little chair, had some, I thought it was so cute, had anxiety, like actual tea, was able to have its concerns towards Riley voiced and heard and still not be in the driver's seat. Oh, that's when we can really learn and hear anxiety's intent towards us and really befriend it. But yes, anxiety is actually here to protect us and help us. Such a beautiful intention, and so grateful. And at the same time, it makes sense. It makes sense that there are different parts of us that don't like our anxiety, that feel like it's irrational, feel like it goes overboard or overreacts. It makes sense. And there are parts of us that don't like the the discomfort that anxiety sometimes can bring in our system, whether it is the somatic pains or symptoms that can bring. Doesn't like that we're in distress all the time, wants us to be calm, wants us to know that. And at the same time, there are things that we face that are indeed scary. The thought of Riley not having friends while she's going to her school because her two other friends were going to a different school, that's scary. That's scary. How can we listen to that and also be with the anxiety and not have it take over? So, yes, anxiety is always here to help. So, the second thing we can learn from the movie Inside Out 2 is that as we grow, our emotions become more complex. So, when we first started out in the first movie, we had joy, we had disgust, we had anger and fear and sadness. Okay, they're here and it makes sense as we're growing in our minds. We think about a child's thoughts are very concrete. Not a lot of nuance happens. Even still, as a teenager, because Riley is in a teenager space, our mind is very fixed on us because that's our world. We're very focused on our survival. That's the focus, and so we don't really see the world around us, and so we're making meaning oftentimes about what's happening. And I'm saying we make meaning, meaning our mind. Our mind is that we have meaning making minds. So if someone didn't do something, our mind makes meaning about why that didn't happen. If our friend didn't call us, it's because they don't like us anymore. It makes meaning about things. That is what our mind does. And as we grow in development, our emotions become much more complex because we get more information. And as puberty comes, we see that we get many more emotions come on the screen. We get anxiety, we get envy, we get uh, bored or lethargic, we get embarrassment, and we see some rare appearances of nostalgia. And nostalgia is by far, as a person who is maybe a little older, watching this movie, nostalgia is probably by far my favorite emotion that this movie shows because it was so precious and it brought a lot of comedic relief. But we see as our mind gets more complex and it starts to even make more meaning about things, and we experiencing different layers of emotions. We start to get more. We start to get more feelings. We start to experience more feelings. And this is something that Joy really had some trouble with. She was used to, Joy was used to being in control first. She was used to being the leader of the system, being in control of Riley's nervous system. And she was doing some things um, to manipulate, ooh, manipulate Riley's experience, putting bad memories, sad memories, memories that may make Riley feel or think about herself in a different way. She was putting those memories and casting them far away. Okay. And she was doing that because she wanted Riley to be happy. What a beautiful intent. What a beautiful intent. And so when these other emotions started to come in, Joy starts to panic. She starts to panic as she's like, now I have less control in how I make sure Riley's happy. And so then she had to accept that, oh, maybe Riley's going to have to experience other emotions and she won't be happy all the time. Because we know, even though we have parts of us that would love for us to be happy and at peace all the time, life shifts and it changes and it moves. And because of that, that elicits different emotions because of that. And when we try to fight feeling those emotions, that is what causes distress in our internal system. That is what causes wars in our internal system, where you saw joy and anxiety fighting each other instead of working with each other. We experience more complex emotions, and that's okay. That's okay. And as we embrace those emotions, joy still comes back, as we saw later in the movie, right? We still get to experience joy and happiness, uh, even though we are experiencing different emotions as well. So that brings us to number three. The third thing we learn from Inside Out to the movie about our internal system, that exiling experiences, and I'll break that down a little bit, right? But throwing away, discarding negative, I'm using quotations, right? Negative experiences or unpleasant experiences can cause more tension internally. Uh-huh. Ooh, yeah. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. As we saw and we mentioned just previously that Joy, she had a way of managing Riley's mood by saying, and that is what our brain naturally does. It says, "Ooh, that's unpleasant. Let's not think about that. Ooh, that happened. Ooh, that made us feel icky. Let's not think about that." So it will put it in a place like that where we kind of forget about it. It's not in the forefront of our mind, or we start to kind of split our attention, maybe do things to check out, whether it's watching TV or hanging with friends or listening to music or watching our favorite shows or social media, ways to check out because it's like, this is distressing. We don't like this. However, these negative emotions or experiences, these unpleasant experiences need attention, need to be acknowledged, need to be addressed. And not having that attention causes great tension. As we saw it between joy and anxiety, they were fighting. They were fighting. And anxiety was tired. It felt like these situations that were distressing were being tossed aside. And anxiety came on like, hey, Joy, I get it. You want her to be happy. And at the same time, you're not thinking about the things that could go wrong. You're not thinking about that. You're coming from this place that's pretty young, earlier in Riley's life. And now we need to consider these social implications of how Riley shows up. We need to consider this. And it's causing great tension in her world. And so having those memories cast aside, that was limiting how Riley showed up, who she really was. As she Riley is all of her experiences. She's the sum of her experiences, as we all are. We are the sum of our experiences. All of our parts, all the parts of us, the different parts of us make us who we are. And so when we toss those experiences aside, when our brain automatically does that, so I want to be intentional in saying that it's not something we are consciously doing. It's not something we're consciously doing. When our brain tosses those things aside to help us because it's distressing, we don't want to think about it. It also tosses aside parts of us that need to be heard, felt, and seen. And so making making intention to be present for those distressing or uncomfortable experiences and emotions helps us to feel more whole, helps us to feel more centered, and also helps us to bring in balance in our world where joy and anxiety aren't fighting for power, that they can just be because things happen. Things do happen. They are distressing, and we can find ways to be present for all of our experiences, even the painful ones, even the distressing ones. And so that brings us to the fourth. The fourth thing we can learn from this movie is that we are much more complex than we know. Our different parts of us, experience different emotions. Now, I feel like the maker of this movie was really trying to help simplify things by naming these parts, different emotions, right? Joy, fear, sadness, envy, anxiety. And as we saw in the movie, all these different, even though they were named Joy, Joy experienced different emotions. She was crying, she was scared, she was frazzled. Her intent was to bring the joy. And we saw how bringing the joy caused Joy a lot of stress. And she was crying. And so, even though her name is Joy, you would think, oh, Joy feels joy. No, joy feels all different types of emotions. And the different parts of us, even though they may be angry or they may be like they may have an intention to bring peace or they may have an intention to be our alert, they still experience different emotions. And we saw this depicted in the movie. Even though we have different parts of us that are doing a specific job, they themselves experience many emotions. And so that's very complex and sometimes can be very confusing to understand why we're feeling what we're feeling. Like, hmm, why did I respond that way? I don't know. Why did I have such a big reaction to that? Why am I so frustrated? I don't understand. We, in those moments, take a moment to sit with yourself, getting information, listening, hearing, seeing, and if this is something that's new to you, taking your time. Of course, I highly recommend, if you are exploring your internal world, to connect with a mental health professional. And of course, I'm going to be a little bit biased and recommend a internal family systems therapist, as this way of looking at our internal world is not pathologizing it, not saying that the things that we're doing are bad, even though we have parts of us that maybe get frustrated with how we show up in the world. Oftentimes, how we're showing up in this world is a way of protection and protecting us and looking out for us. And so, these parts of us that are working so hard, we see in this movie that embarrassment was experiencing sadness. Sadness was experiencing some joy and even getting some confidence throughout the movie as she was getting like this leadership role and she was scared. Like Sadness was experiencing anxiety and fear. These different parts that are showing up in Riley, yes, they have different functions, right? And they also were experiencing many different emotions, even within themselves. And so that's something for us to get curious about when we experience different emotions, and as a way for us to really understand and get to know what's happening internally for us and why these emotions are present, and being with them and welcoming them. So let's look at the fifth thing. The fifth thing that we can learn from the movie Inside Out 2 and how it really shows our internal world is how our memory is held. Those memory orbs, they were so pretty. They're so pretty, different colors. And in those orbs, we see very finite like experiences. Very finite experiences. Riley has an experience that memory is held in a bubble. And that is so very true for how our memory shows up. And when something happens internally for us that is very familiar or similar to a memory that's being held already internally, if you notice, all of a sudden something gets activated in us, that past memory, that past experience, and we respond oftentimes from where we were in that experience. It feels very fresh. For an example, say we're an adult. We're an adult and we have to do a presentation at work, or we're in college and we have to do a presentation at school, and we're not the best prepared. Like we tried, we were busy, we had a lot going on, and so we're winging it. But a past memory gets activated from us being in the second grade in front of the chalkboard and the teacher is asking you to spell a word on the board and you can't remember. You can't remember how to spell it and you freeze. That experience gets elicited because it's in this held space, and it's an unpleasant memory. Like if we're gonna go back, right, it's an unpleasant memory, it's a distressing memory. It maybe hasn't been attended to because, hey, like that happened in second grade. Let's just toss it aside. But oh, as we experience things that are really similar, these memory orbs or our memories that are held in this way, this very finite way, are re-experienced in our minds, in our bodies, very similarly. Those old memories they come back. We re-experience them. So we do. We often respond from the place where it happened. We are responding, even though we're in college, even though we're an adult at work doing this presentation, we're responding from that place that's held in that memory. Second grade, freezing, not knowing how to spell this word. Kids are laughing at us. The teacher's looking at us in a stern face and threatening to call our parents. That's where we respond from, because that's what's being held in our memory. And needing our attention, needing our acknowledgement, our witnessing. Let's move to number 6. The sixth thing we can learn from this movie about our internal world is how our core beliefs come to be. How do we get these core beliefs that we carry in our body and in our mind? Well, we see from this movie those memory orbs that we were naming and or that we were talking about earlier, how those memory orbs are carrying our experiences. And whatever age we were in those experiences, whatever information we had at that moment, our mind makes meaning of these experiences. And as our mind makes meaning of these experiences, whatever information we have at that moment, whether we're 4, whether we're 7, whether we're 10 or 13, whatever information we have in that moment connected to the feelings or the parts of us that had these feelings were feeling in that moment, that is how these core beliefs come to be. Come to be. And we notice this. What really draws this into play is when we see anxiety. Anxiety is working so hard to get Riley some connection, working really hard. Okay, so maybe if we really try hard to get on the team, we wake up in the morning, we practice, we dye our hair, we do whatever we need to do, we ditch our friends, we do everything we can do to align with these new friends so that we'll be okay. And because we're coming from a place, the part of us that's carrying this energy of like we have to do something in order to get something, then what happens? That core belief of I'm not enough, which was not what anxiety was hoping for Riley. If you notice, like anxiety was completely caught off guard. Like, wait a second, hold on, I didn't. This is not what I planned. This is not what I was hoping for Riley to get from me doing this work, for making sure that she's okay, for making sure that she gets to be on the team, gets to have these friends, because her older friends are not going with her at this new school. Well, whatever part is in action and in that memory, or whatever age we experience things in these memories, it's how our core beliefs come to be. And we carry these beliefs. Our parts carry these beliefs. They're very firm and strong in these beliefs because it is the information they had at the time of whatever experience we were going through at that time. And so we carry these beliefs throughout our lives, and they oftentimes dictate and drive and motivate how we show up in the world. And through the healing process, especially with internal family systems, we can spend time with the parts of us that were at 4, 7, 10, 13. We can spend time with those younger parts of us and update them, help them to release the beliefs from those experiences. And that takes time, right? That takes time. And these are how these beliefs come to be. So the seventh thing that we can learn from this movie about our internal world is that our parts are always watching. So our different parts are always watching and for looking out for danger, looking out for us in every way they can. Like, they will not be caught slipping for us. And a great example of this is when Riley was in the car, she's with her friends, and I believe it was like Disgust. Disgust peeped it first. She was like, "Wait a second, what was that eyebrow about? Like, what? Did you see her friend?" And then her friend Riley's friend saw Riley see her eyebrow move. And so then her friend's parts were like, "Wait, did she just see our eyebrow move? Uh-oh, she saw it. Oh no, she knows something's wrong. Okay, panic, right?" So they're always looking. And the word I use is like hypervigilance. They are always protecting and always trying to be aware and on the lookout if if anything that could potentially cause us hurt, harm, re-experience hurt or harm, and and trying to make sure it doesn't happen again, or that by any means necessary they will come and soothe the pain. So it lets us know. It lets us know how much our parts are really looking out for us, how much they really care for us. And we see Riley's parts for different emotions is the name that they use in this movie, right? But her different emotions, they really care. We see, like, they care for her, especially at the end of the movie. Like, they were just like doting on Riley and the different parts of her, and how much they care about her and how hard they're working for her. And they're always working and looking out for us in any way, shape, or form. We cannot be in a situation where we are harmed again. And oftentimes, unfortunately, what does happen is they usually tend to over respond. They tend to over respond only because they are limited in how they respond. Okay? So they're limited in how they respond, and that is when they need the support of each other and also us to help them out. But it was such a beautiful notice for them to be like, "Oh, what was that eyebrow?" And then Riley finds out. Riley finds out once they have this moment of like, "Okay, we have to say something, like, what's going on? We won't be joining you next school year." And that sends Riley's nervous system then into a panic of like, "Oh no, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? How are we going to make it?" And then there's some parts that find out solutions. And that's so interesting, right? Because instead of just like grieving and feeling the feelings of her friends not being there, what happened is anxiety came in and said, "We got to fix it." Which is, again, anxiety jumping in to look out for Riley. So they're always looking, and they're always working, and they're always watching to make sure we're okay. Let's go to number 8. The number 8th thing that we can learn from this movie about our internal world, and we kind of named it a little bit earlier, is that our parts only know how to do one thing, which is their job. Whatever task or role that they have, if we noticed during the movie, those different emotions that were present in Riley, they only knew how to do one thing. One thing. And it makes sense if we think about it, right? Because we have these memories that are locked in this ball. And they're in this stage. So like our memory at 4 is locked. It's locked in. And the part of us that came from that experience, well, they only have the knowledge of what happened at 4. And they only have the skill set and belief system of us at 4. And they only know how to do one thing. And so we notice that in the movie. Sadness is, and you even see the worry on Sadness' face, because when Joy's like, "Okay, I need you to go back to the main boardroom. I need you to go back there while we're trying to get to the old core belief. Like they're trying to get to the old core belief. And so Sadness is like, oh no, because Sadness knows I bring sadness. I bring sadness to the party. Nobody likes that. That's what I do though. But I make sure she experiences and takes care of those and expresses those feelings of sadness. And I'm worried about what's going to happen if I'm there. Well, that's the only thing that Sadness knows how to do. Joy only knows how to fight for Riley's experiences of joy and happiness. Like Joy only knows how to do that. The one that's embarrassed, right, only knows how to express and show like, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is awkward, I'm embarrassed. Anxiety only knows how to make sure make sure something doesn't happen. Anxiety only knows how to control, to make sure things don't happen. Let me do this so this doesn't happen. Let me do this so this doesn't happen. Let me do this so this doesn't happen. They only know how to do one thing, one job, which we see later on in the movie, like, which is why having those different parts of Riley is so important. It's so important because we saw what we see when anxiety stays on the board for a very extended period of time. Like Riley experiences panic attack. She experiences sleep disturbance because anxiety only knows how to do one thing. It needed in the movie, it was so cute, and I mentioned this before, but when Joy came in to like calm anxiety and have a little chair, like that's Joy coming in to step in to assist and help. But that's only once Joy and anxiety like appreciate why each other is here. They're like, oh, when both of us are in control, things tend to go not so well. We need each other. Like, we need each other. We need to collaborate with each other. And so it's not until they realize that they need each other, how much they need each other, that they realize how important they all are for Riley to continue to be Riley and to feel whole and to not have to control how she shows up, but just allow Riley to be who she is, all with all the different parts of her. All right, number 9. The ninth thing we can learn from this movie as we're getting close to the end, the ninth thing we can learn from this movie about our internal world is that the different parts of us, they have beautiful intent to look out for us. However, they usually do not like the outcome of the work that they do. Yeah. Sit down for that for a minute. Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit. Okay? So, they have this need. There is a need. And you see the need in how they show up. You, even throughout the movie. Like they are unapologetically them. Okay? These parts and how they show up for Riley. And then we see that whenever they see their outcome, it really befuddles them. They're like, that's not what I thought would happen. That's not what I thought would happen. I didn't want that to happen. When Joy was trying to interfere with anxiety and and then things didn't go well because Riley was just her normal self and then was having some like cringe moments with the new friends, and then Joy was like, "Oh, I didn't want that to happen." And anxiety's like, there. You sit over there, let me take over." And then anxiety takes over. And then the outcome is Riley feeling like she's not enough. Oftentimes, they're responding from a place of fear of what will happen to us if they don't do the work that they need to do. However, they usually do not like the outcome of how them doing their job, what the impact of that has on us. Usually don't. So examples of that could be whether it is like procrastination. Oh, like we'll avoid doing something, but then we usually don't like the outcome of that avoidance, right? Or perfectionism. We want to make sure we get it right, done right, and get it done perfect. That's really important. But the outcome of it is stress. Or sometimes we just don't do anything because we have to get it done right. It has to be done perfectly. They usually don't like, or we feel like nothing we do is good enough because we feel like we have to be perfect. And then that's the outcome. And so they oftentimes have this beautiful intention, but don't get the outcome that they expected or wanted, and are oftentimes stuck in like, okay, what do we do now? This is what I know to do, right? They only know one thing to do, remember? And they have this fear about, if I don't do this to protect Riley, if I don't make sure that Riley doesn't put on her best foot forward so she can have these new friends, then she'll be by herself. She'll be alone. And so the outcome that anxiety is really hoping for is like for Riley to be happy, for Riley to be happy, for Riley to have new friends, for her to be successful and her hockey career, for her coach to love her. Like that is what anxiety is hoping for, but that is not what anxiety gets in this movie. And that oftentimes, well, as we see, it causes a lot of distress for Riley, but oftentimes causes us a lot of distress as well. So the last thing, number 10, the 10th thing that we can learn, or we can learn from this movie about our internal world, is that the answer is accepting all the parts, all the different parts of us, accepting their value, accepting their role, and allowing Riley to be who she is as a full human, right? Like she's a full human who has many different sides of her. She's got the sarcasm, she's got the goofiness, she's got all of that. Like that's all her because of all of her experiences. And while I'm trying, like a part of me is trying not to have like a kumbaya moment, and like I don't, I don't like, and that's just, and see how easy that is. Just accept yourself, all of the parts of you, even the ones you don't like. Well, that is very hard. Like so, I want to name that is very hard, and I am very aware of that, and so let's talk about this some more. So we see the end of the movie. Anxiety is in the little chair, and everybody is looking at Riley and about how much they love her, and all the different parts of her. And I also want to name that that was a journey for Riley to get there. I mean, we're talking about two separate movies. If we really want to talk about that, like two separate movies, because first the big battle royale was between joy and sadness, and then the battle royale for this movie was like one set of emotions led by joy versus the other set of emotions led by anxiety, and they were battling it out because of the fear of what would happen to Riley, the fear of what would happen to Riley if the other parts got control, if the other parts got in the driver's seat, and they fear like, oh, what would happen? Not until they saw that, oh, we're not getting the outcome that we want, and we actually both care for her. How can we work together? And that takes a lot of clarity, that takes a lot of stillness, that takes a lot of internal work to get to that place. I think it's beautiful for us to see this in a animated movie and to get a good picture of what this could look like. And at the same time, I want to name that it takes real work, like intentional work, getting to know your internal system, getting to hear and experience your internal systems, like experiences of why they do the work they do, all of that, and building a relationship with you, that takes work. And at the same time, the answer to us releasing that need to and the fear of what will happen releasing that control is for us to accept all the parts of us with the nuance, because I also want to bring into that our parts are not, oftentimes our parts have very, very valid reasons for doing the work that they do. You see these emotions, they had the risk was real, right? The risk was real. Her friends were not going to be at the new school with her. That was that was a real risk. They were not, imagining something. That that was a real risk. And with some lived experiences of, kids maybe not being so nice to Riley all the time, so needing a friend group to really survive like the turbulent social structure of a high school, like all of those things are real. Okay? And so sometimes we do need to, and that's the importance of embracing our parts, because we can sit with and acknowledge what we're feeling, and that it is they have a valid reason for feeling that, and that threat probably is real, and we do experience and real threats in our world. It could be physical threats or even psychological, emotional threats to our world of us getting hurt again or us being in a dangerous situation. Like, I want to name, like, that is a true thing. And so, us leaning into our parts and embracing them and having this harmony, we see, like, ooh, this lovey-dovey moment that happens for Riley, and also in real time, what that really realistically looks like for us could be different. So I want to name that, because life is real. I just want to, yeah, name that sometimes leaning in and listening to our parts can cause some response from other parts of us, and making space for that, like making space for that we don't have to choose either or, because oftentimes that's what it feels like, and I'm probably going to make another video about that. If I am diligent in what I would love to do for this movie, I want to make a few videos coming out hopefully very soon, the next week or two. But this one I wanted to get out on ways and things that we can learn about our internal world. You let me know. Let me know if you have any questions about anything that we covered throughout the video. I would love to hear what you learned about your internal world while watching this movie. And if you're still with us, be sure to like the video. Of course, subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone. Share it with someone who you think may benefit from it. And as always, be cool, be calm, be centered. Peace.